Hi, everyone. I'm Doc. I'm a clinical psychotherapist.
And I'm Cece. I'm a professional musician.
We're two friends who spend a lot of time unpacking each other's bullshit.
And this podcast is a way for us to help you through yours.
Welcome to Let's Unpack This. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
So good to see your face.
So good to see your face bright and early in the morning for me.
It's 11:24.
This is my life now in quarantine.
Yeah. Hold on. My ears are ringing.
What?
Someone's talking shit about me somewhere. Hold on. Let's wait for this to stop.
I cannot with you.
It happens a lot. Is that saying something?
Anyway,
how are we
guys,
doing? I'm not doing great.
Yeah, let's be real. I don't know. I haven't really been awake that long to even know how I'm feeling today yet.
I've been awake for a while, but I'm still not really functioning too much. So it doesn't even really matter because I laid in bed for a good 2 hours before getting up.
Yeah, that's been a thing. I think I'm going to start keeping my phone out of my bedroom.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. That way I stop looking at it first thing in the morning. I stop looking at it at night.
That's a killer.
Other than how has your week been?
My week's been okay. Thank God for work, like I said before. Monday through Friday is not too bad. It's just then when I get to the point where I'm like, oh, I can't really do the things that I used to do or go see, for us to I rode my bike to your house and we had a curbside conversation for an hour. But other than that, it's tough.
Yeah.
And it's almost sadder for me when I do see people outside because it's I can't hug you. We can't go eat. We can't touch each other. We can't do anything. So, it's starting to hit me a little bit. Just, the reality of some things, a big thing for me was canceled. And, even though it's all to be very expected and all of that, it's just the reality of we're gonna have to deal with this for a while, and not know, if any of this stuff is gonna be, rectified at all,
Right.
anytime soon. So tough. I really miss physical touch.
I know. I feel and we've talked about this before, now is a really good time to practice that radical acceptance.
Such a great time.
Because we have no other choice.
It's the only thing getting me through right now. I'm pretty, impressed with how calm I've been, but at the same time, I was saying this to you, it's borderline, am I calm? Or am I just, so in shock sometimes that I just have no other way to react. A bunch of shit happened in sequence yesterday that was just annoying shit, and I didn't even react to it. So it's is that depression? Or am I just coping that well? And I'm not sure what the answer is yet. We'll let you know next week.
I can relate to that on a core level.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just definitely exactly what I predicted for this is, all of the insecurities coming up, all of the tests coming up. We are sitting with ourselves, forced to go inward and deal with our shit. And you and I have talked about how we try to work on that anyway, but it's even more so when I'm literally by myself 97% of the time the last 5 weeks, however long it's been. So it's
I have no idea how long it's been. I stopped keeping track.
Yeah, when I realized that my birthday was already 3 weeks ago.
What?
Yeah, It's the 26th of April. My birthday's the 7th.
I'm literally in shock.
Are you shook? Like, that was 3-4 weeks ago? Like, that's insane. When you guys showed up and everything.
That feels like it was last week.
Yeah, no. Isn't that disturbing?
Oh, man.
I know. Speaking of time.
Wow.
Are we going to go back in time today?
Ugh, yes, we are. We are going to take a little road trip back to our adolescence.
Ugh.
And what are we going to talk about?
Well, speaking of also insecurities, we're going to talk today about how high school was the fucking worst.
It was.
Or adolescence in general.
You know what else is the worst?
Yeah.
When you're drinking coffee and you look at the bottom of your cup and it's just all coffee grounds. There's coffee grounds in my coffee. Anyway, back to high school. That ruined my day. My day's done now.
I saw your face. We're FaceTiming right now, and I saw her face, and I was like, she's upset about her coffee. And she's going to be really sad about something. All right, so high school.
High school.
Ugh.
We were trying to pick a topic that didn't have anything to do with the current state of things, so we could just kind of escape for a little. This isn't a pleasurable escape, though. We're going to talk about some trauma.
Yeah, like...
some drama, and some trauma.
Some drama and some trauma. Yeah, I remember we were like, let's not talk about the most miserable thing right now, and then we just chose the second most miserable thing right after quarantine, which was high school.
What was your experience like? If you had to put it in a few words before we start unpacking, how would you describe it?
I feel like you can never ask me the question, put this into a few words. Well, I think on the outside, anyone, whether they heard about my experience or watched my experience, would say that I had a really good high school experience. Like, it looked really good on the outside. But I was completely miserable. Like, you couldn't pay me enough money to go back. No fucking way.
Right.
But in a few words, trauma bonding, depressing, and I'm just going to put popular just to give an all-over encompassing, like, view of just, like, again, like, on the outside, everything looked good. You know, like, I was in the theater, and I was dance captain, and I had a boyfriend, and I, you know, had a big group of friends, and I was popular and pretty, but, I mean, none of that mattered. None of that mattered then. None of that matters now. I don't think about high school in any way other than now.
The feeling. Yeah, like the feeling you had on the inside. I can relate to that.
And I also just don't remember most of it either because I was pretty much blacked out for it. So.
Yep, same.
Maybe alcoholism should be a word I use to describe.
There we go. I always say, yeah. So when I think about my high school experience or just school in general, like, I think of anxiety. The school, like, the idea of school, not the actual learning part, because I didn't apply myself as much as I should have. Again, alcoholism, but, like, I did enjoy learning. But I think I was so distracted by everything else that, like, I didn't have a shot with really, like, doing my best. But I always share this, like, when I share my story, that I did most of my heavy drinking in high school.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know how I lived most of the time. So yeah, a lot of it was a blackout, but again, like, I have a similar experience, like, people looking from the outside, like, I was on the dance team. I was, like, really heavily involved with theater, which is so weird that we have that in common. And like, I was like, I didn't have, like, a big friend group. I went to a smaller school, so it was more like I was friends with a little bit of everybody from every group. Like, I could hang with, like, whoever. I hung out with the jocks, I hung out with the popular girls, but I also, like, hung out with the nerds and, like, the band geeks and, like, that, because that was, like, who I was, too. So I feel like I never really felt like I fit in anywhere.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I do have some good memories, but, like, when I think of it, I kind of get this pit in my stomach because a lot of it was just filled with such insecurity and anxiety and, like, trying to fit in and all of that stuff, which, like, I wish I knew now that none of that mattered.
I know. If only we knew back then. But then that goes into, like, at that age, we just don't have the capacity to think that way. Like,
oh my God, no.
With how our brains developed, like, we don't have the capacity to, you know, understand that what we're going through will end, that it is not the end of the world, that, you know, it won't matter when we're older, that, you know, what others think of us doesn't really matter. Like, we're not able to apply any of that with how our brains developed in our adolescence. So it's hard. Like, when I work with clients that age or parents of kids that age, I have to continuously remind them, like, you cannot use logic to help get them out of what they're experiencing emotionally. You know, everything at that age, at least for me, like, felt so big.
I remember, like, my boyfriend broke up with me, and I cried. I had like this little walk-in closet, and I sat on the floor and I, like, cried for hours. And my mom was like, and I remember the feeling of, like, this is the end of the world. And she was like, you're gonna wake up one day and, like, you're gonna realize, like, that it's not.
Yeah.
And she was so right, but in that moment, like, I could not understand that that reasoning.
No. I wish I did have the tools I have now. But again, like, we're not taught that culturally in school. I think now, from what I hear from clients that are younger, that they're starting to teach some of, you know, meditation and emotional freedom techniques and breath work, like, in some schools. But, like, I wish I had tools like that when I was younger, hence why, like, you and I struggled so much with anxiety and depression, because we didn't have the coping skills. Most people don't. That's why my job exists. And because to get ourselves out of ourselves, because we couldn't, like, sit there and take what our parents said to us or what anyone said to us and, like, be like, oh, okay, like, I won't care about this when I'm 30. Or, okay, like, I'll feel better. But I do now, as an adult, look back at my high school experience or just experiences when I was younger and realize, like, okay, you thought it was the end of the world then and it wasn't, which means, like, none of what's happening right now is also the end of the world. Like, ooh. I'm very, you know, like, I'm very easily able to, like, bounce back from things more so as an adult, where I'm like, no, like, as much as this sucks, like, I've been going through that for, as you know, a handful of months now, where I'm like, this sucks and I don't want it to be this way, but I know that there's a reason why this is happening. I know that there's something better coming. Like, I know all of that, so that's, like, what keeps me going. But at that age, you know, 13, 14, 15, like, you can't apply that.
Can you imagine if they, like, I heard somebody else talking about this, like, if in health class they talked about how to have healthy relationships, or, like, what a healthy relationship looks like, or what abuse looks like, or, you know what I mean? What, like, can you imagine if that was actually, instead of, you know, I mean, watching how a baby is born is important too, but at that age, when your brain's developing and your hormones and everything's happening and, like, you're boy crazy, wouldn't it be important for them to teach us, like, what boundaries are, what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any of these things.
That would have been amazing. And you know what? I should send some letters, because
you should.
My whole goal when I retire is to write a book, like, on all of this, of, like, what should have been taught in school, but that's not going to be for a long time. But yeah, like, that would have been great. I really didn't need to learn about half the shit we learned in school. I also don't remember anything that we learned in school.
No.
I have QuickBooks for my businesses. Don't need to use math. Thank you, though. And
okay, let's not let's not sponsor that ideology that math is not important.
Oh, math's important, but I don't remember any of the geometry I learned.
No, like I have carpenter friends and people in construction it's useful for but like
oh yeah,
there's so many things that like I think would have been really useful for like how to balance a checkbook, how to like pay your taxes.
Yeah.
None of that, like these are literally things that we have to know as adults and nobody taught us how to do them.
What's a credit score?
How to build credit.
The fuck is that? So, I still kind of don't know. Like I
we were talking about that yesterday. I was like, yeah, you have like, there's like 2 different schools of credit. Like there's like one company, I don't know how it works.
This
but, like,
was news to me.
I have 2 credit scores. And she's like, what?
I've only ever seen one, so where's the second? In the cloud.
I don't know. Like, it's all crazy, but...
yeah,
imagine... Okay, let's share a memory.
You go first.
No, you go first. Okay, let's share a memory from, like, each... I don't know. Pick like an area of like of high school and I'll share a memory. Like something about high school, like either whether it's like friends, relationships, actual school, hobby, like pick one of those and I'll share
my brain's dissociating right now.
You've literally left the room.
I'm tapped out because I don't know. Share a memory. I mean, probably like the best memories I could share about were from theater. Mm-hmm. I loved dance, but my anxiety and my insecurities came out a lot in dance. Like, we always won, and, like, you know, we went to all these competitions, but I have a lot of, like, sadness that surrounds dance, and, like, leaving it in when I was 18 because of the anxiety it brought. And, like, that's, like, what I think a lot about of, like, how fear, I mean, this is going back to our last episode, fear and anxiety ran my life, especially in high school, and how, and it's that's sad to me now. But my best memories probably come from theater and hanging out with the people that weren't in my usual, quote, friend group, but, you know, that you became so close to because you were spending so many hours a day after school on the weekends with, and you become like a family. That's probably, like, my favorite memories. Other than that, and, like, anything in my high school years that, again, I don't remember a lot, but that were good memories were not in high school. Like, they were traveling with my family. But I did a lot of damage during those years.
Yeah, when I think about, like, because you were just talking about theater, like, I was, like, in my head going back to that to think of that memory and, like, feel how it makes me feel when I think about it, and I feel anxious because I can't even look at the good of it because all I see is like my alcoholism progressing very rapidly in those years, and everything that I thought like I enjoyed, which I did, there was like a lot of good that didn't have to do with the drinking, but like it was just so riddled with that there's like so much, like damage amongst the good memories. So it's hard to see, like, what part of it was actually good because I was so sick at the time and I didn't know it.
Yeah. And I don't know if you ever feel this way. Like, do you ever think about things from high school and they, like, mirror some things from today? Mm-hmm. Oh, and that, like, makes me cringe. Mm-hmm. Just, especially dynamics of people.
I do have, like, good memories of, like, good friendships, even among, like, because, like, our theater crew, we would just hang out all the time, like, off-season, and, like, I have really good memories of, like, us playing music together and riding around and listening to music and, like, that kind of stuff that's, like, oh, like, those days, like, weren't so bad. You know what I mean? Like, some of those days I would go back to for a day. But then, you know, everything that comes along with it, I have to look at it all as like a lesson, you know, to like see where I came from and, you know, why I acted the way I did. But I do have some good memories, but yeah.
I try everything like I do today is like basically like trying not to be the person that I was in high school. I was talking about, I brought up to a mutual friend of ours that we were going to be doing this topic this weekend, and they were going on about like how high school is so great, like the opposite of how I feel, and how high school is so great, and like it's just such like, you know, this, you know, wonderful environment where, you know, you get to learn all these things and like get to understand social dynamics. And I'm like, okay, maybe you were doing that. But like I was like, which still comes up for me today insecurity wise. And again, like a lot of it's coming up for me now while I'm quarantined, and like your brain has all this space to think and reflect and like go inward and go backward. And it's like, oh. But like I cared so much about what I looked like, cared so much about what everyone thinks of you. Like you're in that space in your brain development where you're like worried. You think there's a spotlight on you. You think everyone's thinking about you and watching you, and they're not. Like today as an adult, I always say that like no one's thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. But he was saying how it's like this environment, this breeding ground for who you are at the core to come out. And so as you were talking about bringing up memories, like my first thought was like, I don't really like who I was, who I put out there, because all I put out there was out of fear. Like I was constantly trying to protect myself, and I don't like that, and I don't think that that's who I am at my core, and I think that's why I feel sad about it, because how I would try to build walls to protect myself isn't actually who I am, and I still today have a hard time letting people in to see who I am. So it's like still building, I'm getting very emotional, still building those walls, you know, now as an adult. I don't love this topic.
This is great though.
But it's important.
Imagine how good we're gonna feel after. This is how your clients must feel all the time.
Yeah. I know.
I could really relate to that, and you were talking about like who you portrayed yourself. Like I wish I knew that ego and persona and like all of that was a thing, because I had no idea who I was. And I've heard you say this before, like I thought I hated myself, but really I just didn't know who I was. And I think that's so important to think of, because I too, like every decision I made was, now I can look back and know like it was made out of fear. And I think of like the way I acted, like, I mean, first of all, let's just say this, like I struggled before high school with mental health and like all these things, and then like going and not getting the help I needed for it. And then going into high school, I had, and I have this feeling now thinking about it, like I hated it, but I also felt like I had arrived, because I found people that had the same struggles and like would drink, and like we would like party on the weekends, and like we thought we were like living our best lives, but really it was just stunting our brain development even further. And then add on top of that, you know, the hormones that are getting released into your body at that age, and all of that comes along with it. It's not it's like the petri dish for, you know, either success if you're built for it, or the opposite. And I thought when I was even like a freshman in high school, like when, you know, I was like hanging out with seniors, like this is the best thing ever. Like I'm being validated, right? Like people actually like me. You know, like they don't hate me like I think I hate myself. And if I can be friends with all these different friend groups, then like I must not be too bad. So it was like, it's like all for validation, every decision that I made. And wow.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So much
so cringe.
Validation and attention. and all of that. I can relate to everything you were saying. And high school it's like a fucking microcosm for breeding of insecurity. Like every insecurity that you'll ever have, you ever had, is gonna grow into a fungus that will just follow you throughout 4 years, all through. I mean, it's insane. And this person that I was talking to about it, they were like, it's like the Hunger Games, but for real life. And it truly is. Yeah, just, I mean, when I was a freshman, I was dating a senior. Like, let's just resonate with that for a fucking moment.
Yep.
And I thought there was nothing wrong with that. And my friend was like, that doesn't surprise me. Like, you're going to fucking come into to freshman year and bulldoze and date a senior. Like, of course you would do that. And I was like, I can't believe you're looking at me however many years removed from fucking high school that we are, and you're going to be like, that doesn't surprise me. I'm like, oh my God, do I have more work to do?
I was to say, I think I was a sophomore, though, and I dated a senior. Yeah, like, every year I went to, like, every prom.
Yeah.
Like, my poor mother, you know what I mean? Like, all the money spent on prom dresses. Like, now being an adult.
My poor father.
I can't even, like, think, like, the amount of money. And, like, speaking of money, so my junior year of high school, we moved. And we moved, like, 40, it was, like, 45 minutes away from my school. Well, I guess it was, like, a half hour, but, like, in the morning, it would be a 45-minute drive with traffic. So my parents offered to give me, because I went to a private school, they're like, we'll give you your tuition money towards a car if you transfer. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, it was like the winter / spring of my junior year. So I would have been going into my senior year at a new school, and I was like, nope. Like, looking back at that decision, like, I was so caught up in, you know, oh my God, I'm going to have to make new friends. I'm not going to know anybody. Like, and the public school that I would be going to is one of the best schools in the state. Like, I was, like, not interested. You know what I mean? I was just, like, worried about staying with my friends. So I drove myself to school every morning, that long drive, or the rest of my junior year, I would have to drive to the bus stop, be there at 6:30 in the morning to get on the bus to go to school. Like, so just like looking at my decision making back then, like, it was so warped. You know, I could have had a car.
Yeah.
I could have had a new car.
But the social aspect for me too, like for most people that I know that went to high school, are in high school, is so important. I mean, when you were saying that, I thought to myself, like, because I too can relate to that. And, like, thinking that if I, like, the play's ending, like, the end of the world, not being able to go to a party, end of the world. If I got grounded, end of the world. And it was all social-based. Like, all fear of, like, was I going to miss out on something? What were they going to think if I wasn't there? Like, me not being there, like, what was that going to mean? Nothing. But, you know, I'm incredibly self-centered. And it just got me thinking, like, everything is temporary. Like, I've moved so many different places in my life, purposefully.
Yep.
I've had so many different groups of friends over the course of my life. And some of them I keep in touch with, some of them I don't. And I have learned to become kind of like a wanderer. Like, I've learned to become, you know, not relying on people, because I've learned that we can't rely on people. Like, we can only ever rely on ourselves, which, I mean, again, bringing it back to this, like, quarantine, like, that's what we're learning. So, like, what you're saying, like, in the midst of that, in the middle of that, like, you and I, like, it would have been the end of the world to leave that social connectivity and to leave that environment. But now, like, we learn, like, we only ever have ourselves. Everything is temporary. We don't feel these things forever.
Right.
They don't feel as heavy forever. But when you're in the midst of that, especially at that age, like, we don't know that. Like, that concept to us just doesn't exist at that time.
It's funny because, like, that's not who I am today either. Like, if I compare myself to that, like, I'm all about new experiences and, like, moving and traveling. So, like, it's funny to think of that. Like, I kind of embrace changes like that today. But, like, thinking back at it, and I was like obsessed with the idea of like keeping the same friends, and after I graduated I didn't stay friends with anybody because I moved myself into the inner city and like started living this life of this nightmarish life, I would say, that had nothing to do with like any, you know what I mean, like the way my life turned out after high school. Like I didn't stay friends with anybody from high school anyway. I stayed friends with a couple, like, you know, through the years, like, you'd reconnect with, like, your best friend from high school, but, like, for me, I wasn't a part of that group that, like, you know, got vacation homes every year together, which a lot of them still do to this day, and, like, that's okay. Like, as soon as I graduated, I was no longer interested in any of those people anyway, which it's like, I was headed towards a different path, but at the time, it felt like the end of the world.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool to look back. I don't know if you have this experience where you can derive some strength from that simple fact of like, you know, there were times in my life where I thought the world was going to end, or I wasn't going to be the same, or I wasn't going to be able to continue going without this or without this person or without this thing. And you've come to find over and over again, like, in fact, you did. And in fact, like, you are fine. Everything is fine. You're probably better off for it. Sometimes not, who knows? But you've always gotten through it. And I think that's really cool to be able to look back on that. Because I too, like, I a little bit, but I mean, I don't see anybody that I went to high school with. I left high school, went to school in DC, left DC, lived in Florida for a number of years, moved to where we live now, which I didn't know anybody when I moved here. And so I've had so many different groups of friends in all these different areas of my life. And some I still talk to and some I don't. And I'm okay regardless. But I did have somebody reach out to me yesterday, actually. I almost said like a week ago, but that's not true. It was yesterday. And what is time now? I'm not sure. And he messaged me. He started following me on Instagram recently. And he was like, and I get these messages a lot, especially the last couple years, which have been really cool. He was like, hey, it's really nice to see you on here. I see that you became the therapist you always said you were going to be.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't talked to him since I've lived here, so that's almost 5 years now. And I haven't talked to him since way before I moved here, so it's got to be like way longer than that, like maybe even 7 years.
Wow.
And, you know, he just started following me on Instagram recently, and he said that, and I was like, that really meant a lot to me because, you know, it's cool to get messages. Like, I got a lot of messages of like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, you seem so happy. And, I mean, not right this moment, but, like, you know, like, you seem, like, I get a lot of messages of, like, of people I haven't seen in years where they're like, you seem so happy, which is true. I mean, other than right now. And, that doesn't mean that, like, I'm not overall happy. And, like, that's so cool to hear that from people that, like, haven't seen me. But yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the biggest things I've learned from just this conversation we've had for the last half hour is like, we only have ourselves, and like, that's okay. And like, we can always move forward from the stuff that we thought we weren't going to be able to ever bounce back from. Like,
it's funny because I've had that experience before we move on from that. I've had that experience, especially recently too, with being a little more present online with like music and stuff. Like, I've had people reach out to me from, you know, childhood friends to high school friends to like people I was like friends with when I was like deep in my drinking. Like, they've reached out to me. Like, it's really, and of course I can never see like the change in myself.
Right.
But then, you know, like, they'll reach out and be like, it's so amazing to like see you still singing and like doing what you always loved and like actually doing it as your career. And then especially since like I got sober, like, I've had so many people reach out and be like, you look like you're so happy. Same thing like that. So you said, cool. Like, you look like, you know, it's so inspiring. Like, and I never think that about myself. You know what I mean? I think like, oh, I went through these horrible things and like I was like, you know, graced enough to like get out of that life, but I never think that anybody else would see it as like an inspiration. So especially now, like, you know, everybody's stuck at home, we're all online, and, you know, people are checking out my music that normally, like, I haven't talked to since grade school, and it's really nice to, like, feel validated. But, like, in a positive way.
Yeah. What, like, experiences from high school or dynamics or, like, themes, too, like, do you wish you could leave there? Like, you could leave there and not show up your face. And, like, not show up in today. Because I don't know if you experience... Well, actually, I know that you do, but I was, like, trying to pretend like we haven't talked about this before. Like, because there are dynamics that show up in our 30s, in our 20s, that, like, feel very high school-ish. That I'm like, okay, let's not. Let's move away from this. And like I said earlier, like, a lot of things coming up now that I'm like, oh, God, like, I need to keep working on that.
So we have talked about this before.
Yes.
And we were actually going to do, like, a whole episode on it, but we can touch on it all now. But, like, the whole, like I said, like, in high school, I was kind of friends with everybody from every group. Like, my experience was a little bit different from yours, probably. Like, I kind of resented those girl gangs, like, the girl
I didn't
groups.
Even
like,
think of that, yes.
Yeah, like, I was, like, not with it. Like, I was the one that would, like, stick up for, like, the kid that was, like, getting bullied by the popular girl. You know, like, I was always, like, the hero martyr figure that, like, was friends with everybody and could, like, make peace in between, like, all the different friend groups. So now, like, that still shows up in my life, and I have to, like, be open-minded to the fact that, like, I'm not in high school anymore. Like, I can be friends with women and not feel like I'm, you know, less than or better than, like... It's still really hard, though, and I definitely have a bias against, like, hanging out with groups of women because of that experience.
Yeah, I hear that. I do have a very different experience than other people with that, and I think it's just because that's what I was so used to growing up, like, always having a group of girlfriends, and it's not better or worse, it's just a different experience, so... Yeah, like what you're talking about, and we have a lot of friends that feel that way about women and groups of girls, and I feel like I'm the, like, outlier with that feeling.
Right.
Because I love a group of girlfriends, and I love doing things together, and, like, I love planning things together, and I love getting matching t-shirts, and, like, I just love it. And
I'm literally cringing inside right now.
I know you are, that's why I'm bringing it up. And it's so cool that, like, we're so close as we are, because we're so similar in so many ways, but, like, also so different. And so when, like, our friends talk about, like, hating girls growing up, it's like, yeah, like, I definitely did not care for a lot of girls that I went to high school with or were friends with, but I stayed friends with them out of fear, whatever, and then finally grew some balls senior year and was like, bye. But,
yes.
But... I think just because, like, that's something that I became so used to me, I'm like, no, like, no one has to be left out. Like, everyone's included, and, like, everyone can be together, and, like, everyone, you know, we all hang out.
That's great.
But for other people, it's traumatic. And, like, they don't want to be a part of it, and they won't accept my invitations to my house, and they're, like, they want nothing to do with us. And, like, that's fine. Yeah, it took you a while to, like, soften up to some things.
Seriously, like, I declined for a while.
The first birthday of mine you ever came to, I was like, I can't believe she's here.
And it's nothing against, like, I'm, like, the kind of person, like, it definitely brings me back to high school, because I just thought of a memory, like, I'm having a trauma response right now, because... I just thought of, like, how in high school, I remember on the first day of high school, I spotted the popular girls. Ugh. And they knew each other, because it was a private school, so, like, they came from, like, the same town. Okay. So they were already friends. And I was, like, instantly, I was like, I hate them, but I'm gonna become friends with them. So, like, out of fear, like, I wanted to be friends with them so that I could be validated and feel like I'm, like, good enough to be friends with you because you're cool and you're pretty and you play sports and, like, and now I think about one of those girls in particular, and it's really sad to think of where her life went. Like, same as me. You know what I mean? Like, that we were all in the same boat. Like, we were more similar than we were different.
Wow.
And I actually, like, you know, we actually reconnected later in life, and then some things happened. And it was like we had to go our separate ways. But yeah, when I think of like girl groups today, like I have to separate that memory because it's not what it is today.
Yeah. It's so fascinating what our body and our brain choose as like survival mechanisms. Like, you walked into school that day and it was like your brain decided, like, in order to survive, like, I have to become friends with these people. And
isn't that crazy? I can literally remember how many years. What year was that? I graduated from high school in 2008, so it was what, 2004? Mm-hmm. 2004. That's like a really, really long time ago, and I can visually remember sitting in the auditorium and seeing them from across the room.
How many years ago is that?
I don't want to know.
Told you I didn't learn shit about math in high school. We'll look it up later. Whoever's listening to this is probably rolling their eyes like, how does she not know 2020 minus 2004? But I don't, so.
Neither.
Yeah, like how, but that's the power of perception, right? Like, your brain decided, like, hey, this is the survival mechanism, like, I have to do this, you do it, you don't have a positive experience, and why would you? Like, I don't know anybody who has a positive experience being in a trauma bonding friend group full of toxicity and gossip and bullying and bullshit. And like, I have those experiences too. Like, I totally get it. And I, you know, was not a bully, but I would get nasty with girls to go back at them. And I mean, listen, I've never been in like a fight. I've never, like, I would watch people get in like fights. And so when people talk about that now, I'm like, I've literally never even pulled a girl's hair. Like,
I wasn't in a fight in high school, but oh wait, was I? Oh, that was high school. Oh my God.
I can see you being in a fight. You're scrappy.
I wasn't in as many fights as you would think I am. I would be. Like, I used to drink and try and fight guys. That was like my thing. Not physically, but I would start some shit with like the guys who were like, kind of like rude at the party. I remember I chased this guy around the room with a butter knife at a party in high school. My
mouth is dropped open for those of you who don't know what's happening right now.
I have some stories, but like I still owe amends, so I'm not going to share them on a public platform.
We can talk about that later when that's done. That's really funny. I still can. I would cut people with my words. Yes. But as a person who likes to be daddy and baby at the same exact time, I would just like crouch and like run away. I would like say my piece and then like.
Well, I think the reason why I didn't get in as many fights as I could have is because I've always hated confrontation. So like I'm very fiery, but like I am afraid of confrontation because I'm too afraid of like people not liking me. What a dichotomy. What a dichotomy. So like my internal chaos was like off the charts, but like I would like reel it in so that like I could please everybody.
I think I can completely relate. I think we need to talk about on an episode what, like, more about vulnerability and, like, letting people in and, like, how we recreate our core beliefs, like, through our behaviors, but then we're still left with the same result because everything you're talking about right now, like, I completely relate. And I don't act like I did in high school, but, like, I still, like I said earlier, like, do the things where I block people off or, you know, get them to, you know, be scared of me or like whatever. It's like, that doesn't really work. No.
So it's taken, like, I'll round up the math. It's taken over 10 years to like figure out how to react and like relate to other people in friendships and relationships in a decently healthy way. I won't say healthy way completely, but like if I compare my relationship now to one of my relationships in high school, like it looks nothing like that.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like I can't even recognize, and I think about that kind of often, which is a good way to like gauge where I'm at with myself and with like relationships and codependency and all that. Like there are things that will come up and feelings that'll come up that'll remind me of how I acted then, or insecurities, but it's taken a lot of work to be able to like separate those behaviors and become kind of a new person. Like I'm not that person that I used to be. I'm not jealous and insecure in my relationship. Like I was crazy. And rightfully so, like, because I put myself in these positions where I was in these extremely unhealthy relationships, you know, with guys, with friends, like, but, so, like, I put myself in those positions because I didn't know any better, and now, like, I don't have to do that. I have done it. Let's not say, like, like, that all my relationships in my adulthood have been healthy, because that is completely not true, but,
Right.
Like, it's a good way to, like, compare myself to myself is to look at high school.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like, just because this is my life experience, like, I attest growing up quickly to having gotten sober when I was 19. So, you know, like,
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, because, like, I know that you got sober then, but now when I think of
right after
where
high
I was
school.
at that, yeah, like, that's right after high school.
Yeah. But, you know, shit still comes up.
Yeah,
I wonder
of course.
what it would be like I've been thinking about this a lot, like, to be in high school and going through this. So, like, there's no, I mean, they're not supposed to be, but, like, I'm sure there are, but, like, there's no parties, right? Like, you don't have to, like, worry about not having FOMO, fear of missing out, not being invited.
No, but you would. I think you still would have it on a more, like, bigger level.
Wow. That sucks.
You know what I mean? Like, you'd have, like, FOMO times 10 because not only are you not invited, but it's not happening at all. You don't even have the opportunity to be rejected. Oh, my God. That's, like...
Wow.
That just gave me anxiety. You know what I mean? Like, place yourself back in high school. And you're stuck at home now, like... You're either going to have a greater acceptance over it, or you're going to be big mad because you can't go to parties. Nobody is. You're totally missing out on that experience.
Like, this could be such, and no one's going to take it, but, like, this could be such a great opportunity for people who are in school to learn, like, how to become okay with themselves. But, like, is that going to happen? Like, probably not. But this, oh my gosh, like, the therapist in me, I'm like, let's sound a mass public service announcement, like, get your shit together before you go back, if you ever do. Like, I have a lot of clients who are seniors right now. My heart breaks for them, and they're, like, some of them are really happy. They're like, you know what, like, I'm fine with it. Like, I'm fine not having to see those fuckers again. Like, literally, like, this is what they say to me.
That was me. Like, I couldn't wait to be done school my senior year.
And then some of them were like, okay, cool. Like, we've waited literally 4 years for senior prom and graduation. And it's not happening. But I know. One of my clients actually said, for the, like, that challenge of everyone putting their photos up on
social media,
of their senior photo, my client was like, you're not commemorating us. You're just reminding us of the memories that we can't create that you had.
Ugh.
And I was like, oh.
It's heartbreaking.
But, I mean, I'm like, kind of like, oh, I wouldn't, I don't know. I'm sure I would have made, like, a big dramatic deal about it. Yeah.
Do you have your senior year yearbook?
Fuck no.
You don't?
No, my mom might, but if it's burned somewhere, like, that's okay. Should I go find it?
I mean, not right now,
no.
but
after this is over.
Yeah, I have mine, and I just read, like, you know, where it would say, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, what
did
was
you
yours?
do that?
If I did, I blocked it out.
I have it. It's in the other room. But so maybe when we post this episode, we'll put it in the description what each of ours said, if you can find yours. Mine was like, it was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? What would like my career be? What are my or it just said like, what are my goals? And it was like, I want to travel, have a family, and have a career in the music industry. It was like something that was like very relevant. Except I don't have a family yet, which is fine because I don't know if that's a thing.
That's really fine, and it'll happen for you. But that's really, really cool. I don't know.
I know. Or you could reach out to somebody you went to high school with to ask them to find yours.
Yeah, like the 1.5 people I talked to. I will, Riley, stop.
Wait, 1.5? How does that happen? 1/2 of a person?
No, like, you know, like when you like kind of talk to somebody, but like you don't. So like it's just like that. Or
you like barely have a relationship, yeah.
Or they're really short. But anyway. So, bad joke. I'll ask her. I mean, who knows? Because so much of my stuff, like I said, because having gotten sober at the age that I did, like my crap is like who the fuck knows where.
Yeah.
And then when they sold the house I grew up in a few years ago, we went through everything, but I definitely don't have it. But I'll find out.
Knowing your mother, I guarantee you she has it.
You know what's gonna happen? I'm gonna text her about it, and she's gonna be like, "I'm too busy. I can't find it." And I'm gonna be like, "Cool, we're five weeks into quarantine, but okay." And I'm just gonna listen to this and cuff her on it. But anyway, she's gonna definitely tell me all the things as to why she's too busy to go look for it. But anyway, moving on. I'll find out. But definitely in there, if like I did write something like that, it's not gonna look anything like my life looks like today. Because when I wanted to be a journalist. I went to school for journalism. I went in DC, like I said earlier, and I can
totally see that too.
Yeah, I was like set to be a famous writer, and I wanted to work in a fashion magazine and live in New York City, and like I had this whole plan, and then we didn't do that. We got sober and went to build a very fulfilling life, and went on to grad school, and moved 3 times, and then ended up opening my practice and getting my PhD and all that good shit. And like it's just, and also for someone who hated school so much, why am I still in like school? I've been in school my entire life. It's been like, because I took a break, it's been 10 years of higher education. Like that's so disturbing to me. But anyway,
that's incredible though. So it wasn't really school that you hated, it was the social aspect, and I can relate to that. But
yeah, I like learning.
Yeah.
I don't like sitting down and doing work, especially now as like a working person, but I love learning. Yeah, I don't love the social aspect of it. And I'm a social person. Like my love language is quality time. I'm like I love not being able to see people all day, like clients or otherwise. Like it's been hard. But so luckily like my love of humanity hasn't changed as a result of having like shitty social experiences. But yeah, so if I wrote, going back, like if I wrote anything, it would probably have been about being a journalist, or I don't know. Maybe I even put on like being on Broadway or some crazy shit like that. Who knows? But I've been told that I look the same that I did in high school, which is like the greatest compliment of my life.
Yep. Yep.
Like, thank you. Because this skincare regimen is fucking expensive. But whatever. Is there anything that you wish you had back, or wish you knew back then that you know now? Any more of that?
I just wish that I had been given some tools. But here's the thing, if I was given the tools, would I have even used them?
I don't know.
Because I am a strong believer that, like, I had to go through everything that I went through to get to where I am today. And maybe...
True.
I mean, but yeah, it would have been nice to, like, be a little more comfortable in my own skin. But, I mean, that goes back to even... I remember in grade school having those same feelings of anxiety and insecurity. And, you know, that's just the way I'm wired. So if I went back, like, maybe I personally wish, like, I would have focused more on school and the learning aspects. But then again, like, I don't remember anything anyway. So, like, would it have even mattered? So maybe my answer is no. Like, I don't think I would go back and change anything. Yeah, maybe I would have changed, you know, moved to that other school so I could have, like, saved some money and, like, saved my parents the headache of dealing with my my dramatic self. Like, no, I'm not going to move schools. I'm going to drive an hour each way to school each day. Like, that was ridiculous. But
right.
Would you have changed anything?
I have the same feeling that you do. I'm a strong believer, and if I went back to change anything, it would have ended up somehow happening that same way, because that's just what I've learned how the universe works. That happens in my adulthood now that I'm aware of it. Like, anything that I try to do, if it's not meant for me, it has always ended up in the same fucking result. Like, so yeah. I'm a firm believer in that just wouldn't be a thing. Like, even if I try to go back and change anything, it would just have worked out the same way. We needed to learn what we did. But I think what's important to take away now as an adult, and like before as a younger adult, I'm still a young adult, is, let me go cry in the corner, but
tell yourself.
I'm still young, is not to try and carry the same shit from back then and today.
Yeah.
Like the gossiping and the, you know, going behind people's backs, and like that always felt so horrible when that happened. And, you know, just being really cognizant of others' feelings, your own feelings, letting myself feel, not getting caught up in the back and forth of, you know, attention seeking, validation, like all of that is creeping up now for me, like all of that stuff, all those memories. And you were referring to that before, and I think just trying to remember, like, don't bring high school with you into the adult world. Like, you learned what you learned, fucking leave it there, and let's move forward. Because
I think that's great, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of 30-somethings walking around like, listen, you peaked in high school, leave it there.
I think that's a great takeaway. If anything, like, you know, we talked about a lot of the negativity about high school, but from what we've learned, you know, being sober, like, we can take from those experiences negative and apply them as a lesson and try to grow from that. Like, all of my lessons in life had to been earned through hardship, and that's still today. You know, like, I have to, that's just the way my brain's wired, and I pretty much say this in every episode. So if you're listening and you feel like you've had to learn things the hard way, like, don't be so hard on yourself, because I'm in the same boat. I'm, you know, 30 years old, and I still have to take the long road a lot of the time. Not as much as when I was younger, but yeah, so, like, if we can look at all these things and look at those insecurities and try to not repeat the same mistakes today in adulthood, then it wasn't all for nothing. Hopefully.
That's so real. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So remember, guys, you are not unlovable until someone loves you.
You are and always have been lovable since you got here. Thanks for tuning in.
We love you.
We love you. Hi, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like our podcast, please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can like us on social media. Our Instagram handle is Let's Unpack This Pod. You can find us on Facebook. You can also email us to letsunpackthispodcast@gmail.com and submit your questions or topic ideas. When we read the questions, they will be anonymous, so your name will not be on the podcast. So please feel free to be open about any issues you're having or situations that you would want us to unpack. Please make sure you subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcast so you can get alerts when our next episode is up. We thank you for listening.